And again, that's St. John. That's going to be the 6th chapter. And I'm going to commence reading at verse 5. It says, when Jesus then lifted up his eyes and saw a great company come unto him, he said unto Philip, when shall we buy bread that these may eat? Verse 6, in this he said to prove him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 pennyworth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may take a little. Verse number 8 says, one of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said unto him, there is a lad here which had 5 barley loaves, 2 small fish, but what are they among so many? Jesus said in verse number 10, he says, and Jesus said, make the men sit down. Now there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down in a number of about 5,000. And Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed to the disciples, and the disciples to them that were set down, and likewise of the fishes, as they would. Verse number 12, when they were filled, he said unto his disciples, gather up the fragments that remain, that nothing be lost. 13, therefore, they gathered them together and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the 5 barley loaves, which remained over and above unto them that had eaten. You may be seated. I want to talk this morning very, very briefly about how God can take what we call so little and multiply it into so much. I want to kind of stay focused on verse number 9. It says, there is a lad here which had 5 barley loaves, 2 small fish. But what are they among so many? 5 little barley loaves of bread. It's common food back then. 2 fish. 5 and 2 makes 7. Number of completion. Now, it said a young lad, and I researched as much as I could, and I seen that when they say lad in the Bible, they mean a little young youth. Does not specify an age, but we could say that could have been a lad that was under the age of accountability. But it did not say. But yet and still, here was a multitude of people which came to hear, to see, to witness, to take back what they had saw. And that was the healing that Jesus did, the teaching that he did. Great multitude of people. Wherever our Lord and Savior went, there was always a multitude of people that gathered because they witnessed what he had done, witnessed what he had said, witnessed what he had taught. But I just want to throw this in there. I understand that they knew who he was, they knew where he came from, and they knew what he was here to do. But the question that always plagued me in the back of my mind, they were after what he could give, but they wasn't after the eternal. Yes. They were after the healing that he saw, that they saw that he did to so many people. How he unstopped deaf ears, how he opened blind eyes, how he was raising from the dead. Seen all these wonderful miracles, but missed what he was there for, which was their salvation. This young lad that was in the crowd kind of makes you want to think, did this young man wake up that morning and said that I'm going to go find Jesus and follow him? Because I'm quite sure he had heard, he had seen, he had witnessed some of the things that was going on. Because why? He was part of the crowd. He was part of the crowd. He was at the age where he knew he was going to be gone for a minute or two. So he gathered him up. 5 little barley loaves, 2 little fish. It said fish. It said little fish. So who knows? They could have been minnows. They could have been sardines. It did not specify, but the point of what I'm trying to get you to see is that he specializes in a little bit. But once you take that little bit, you give it to him, he blesses it, it multiplies. Oh, some of you looking at me strange. Okay, let me just kind of go home a little bit. How many of you have at the end of the week has got their little piece of paper? It either comes from the bank or either it comes from your establishment where you work, and it's got some little numbers behind it that says that this is what you made for that week, or this is what was deposited into your account for that week. And you look at that and you say, well, wait a minute, now this ain't going to be enough to cover what I got to do. But yet still you look at it, but you say, but you know what? Here's your 10%, God, and I know what you're going to do with the rest of it. But then when you look at your account again, you say, now wait a minute. It wasn't quite that much on the paper, but yet and still, he specialized and took that little bit, multiplied it, and you even had enough to make it all the rest of the week. Oh, we kind of look at that and we say, well, I don't know what happened. Well, I can tell you what happened. I tell you exactly what happened. You took them little numbers that was on that piece of paper and you took off 10% of it first. And you brought it and you laid it and you gave it. And he said, you know what? Now I got the rest of it. This young man had his little 5 barley loaves of bread. He had his 2 little fish, and I don't know, but if I was to use my spiritual, I would say that he kind of like, well, I done seen what he did here, so I'm going to take what I have, I'm going to give it to him, I'm going to watch him bless it, and then I'm going to watch it multiply. Okay? So, the disciple, Philip, answered him, 200 pennies worth of bread? Is it not sufficient for them that every one of them may take a little? Now watch Andrew. In verse 8, Andrew says, one of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said unto him, there is a lad here which had 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. But what are they among so many? Jesus said, well, fellas, you have been with me, you have watched me, and you have seen what the Father has ordained me to do. He said, but, okay. He said, have the men to sit down. He says, now this was only the men. This was not counting the women and the children. He told the men, have the men to sit down. If you're reading in the right Bible, I believe that's what it says. He says, and Jesus said, make the men, verse 10, he says, and Jesus said, make the men sit down now. There was much grass in the place. So men sat down in a number of about I believe my Bible says a number of 5,000. I don't know what yours says, but 5,000. That's a lot of people. He says, just have them to sit down. And verse number 11, he says, and Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed to the disciples, and the disciples to them that were sat down. Now, this was the men that were sat down already now. Now, he going to distribute it to the ones that sat down of the fish, and much of them. So, what I'm trying to get you to see, you may think what little you have in you can only be sufficient for you. But God is telling us that if I can take 5 little small barley loaves of bread, 2 little small fish, give thanks to the Father, break it, bless it, and give it to a multitude of 5,000, how much more do you think he has instilled in you? Oh, don't miss that point. If he has taken you, when I came down the aisle, I don't know about you, but I was all broken up, torn up, poor in spirit and poor in everything else. But he took me, cleaned me up, told me, say, son, I got a job for you. He said, they might not want to accept you, but don't worry about it. But I had my 5 little barley loaves of bread and my 2 little fish. But I brought them down to the altar. I gave it to the one who I knew was going to multiply it into much more than what I could ever do. My brothers and sisters, then after everybody had ate, he says, I don't want anything to go to waste. He says, so this is what I want y'all to do. I want you to take these baskets and I want you to fill up with what's left. They gathered the baskets, and 12 baskets of fragments from 5 barley loaves, 2 little small fish. Wow, that's a lot. And I'm quite sure the little young lad that was there, I'm pretty sure he had him a basket. And I'm pretty sure that on his way back to where he came from, which was home, he's coming with a basket. He says, I left out with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but I'm back with enough to feed some more folks. And see, that's what he's trying to tell us. Take what I have put in you. You can't keep it for yourself, but this is what you do. Take your little 5 barley loaves of bread that you got. Take your little 2 small fish, hand it to me, and watch me multiply it. Folks will be looking at you kind of strange, be wondering how in the world are they making it. It's not because of what you have, because it's what he has instilled in you. Oh, don't be ashamed to tell the world, say, all I have is 5 little barley loaves and 2 little fish, but do you know what? That's all right. Because you know what? I know a man that specializes in taking just that little bit what you have, but when you see me again, it's going to multiply into a whole lot. But guess what, baby? I don't need to keep it for myself. Here's some for you too. Here's some for you. Because guess what? What he has given you, you can't keep it to yourself. I can't name or see any one person that comes in contact with Jesus and have to keep it to themselves. It ain't gonna happen, because you know what? What he has still instilled in you is what he wants you to carry out. Look at it. 5 barley loaves, 2 little small fish, fragments of 12 baskets. Jesus is the only man that I know is able to do that. Even if you look in the book of 1 Kings, chapter chapter number 17, verse 12 and 13. When he had the widow, but she had just a little bit of meal and a small little thing of oil in her cruse. But she listened to the man of God. When Elijah told her, he said, but go in there and make me a cake first. He said, and then after you make me the cake and bring it to me, he said, then you and your son go back and eat. Because she was out there gathering sticks to fix her last meal for her and her son. But she listened to the man of God. You can go a step further in Mark chapter 12, verse 42, when he talks about the widow that had the 2 little mites, but she threw them in the basket, and Jesus looked over at the treasure and said, you know what? She has put more in there than the ones that is even wealthy. Right. Go to 2 Kings chapter 5, verses 1 through 14, when we had this great general by the name of Naaman that had leprosy. He had 7. He told him, he said, go dip yourself in the Jordan River 7 times and your skin will be just like a baby's. My brothers and sisters, like I've said, Jesus is the only one that I know that can do that. The only one that I know when he went to the Father and told the Father that he was going to redeem man back. He was the only one that I knew that was wrapped in the flesh, walked the face of the earth 33 years, healing people, raising people from the dead, but yet and still never said a word. He was the only one that when he went into the Garden of Gethsemane, prayed so hard for us until blood looked like, sweat looked like blood coming down of him. He's the only one that I know that was on the cross between 2 thieves. One of them dying. The other one says, you know what? This man ain't did nothing. Jesus is the only man I know that at that very moment put the time on death, made it stop, looked over and told him, don't worry about it, because on this day, you're going to be with me in paradise. Jesus is the only one that I know that is able to comfort you when you're going through your times, when you're going through your storms, when you're in your valley. Jesus is the only one that I know can halt it. Jesus. Yeah, we talk about I only got a little bit. But baby, look at your little bit. Give it to the one that can multiply a lot out of it. The point of this message this morning is to let you know that 5 barley loaves, and if you look this up, they wasn't very big pieces of bread. Right. Oh, but look what he did with them. It's the significance of the story. It's not that the lad was going. What did he go there for that? We don't know. But I know what he came back with. The same thing we can come back with. As we listen to messages day and day and day. Maybe you're here. You may have your 5 barley loaves.